Good morning, and welcome to Chapel Chat. I'm Pastor Kevin Little, and this is the chapel at Rantoul First United Methodist Church. Today we're going to talk about unity and why it is so hard for us. A member of our congregation sent me an email with a link to her daily devotional that was talking about this subject. In that devotional, they point out that the church is called to unity, but the fact that we as the church are not unified actually hurts our message. For those of you who have heard a few of my sermons, you know that I believe that the splintering that happened in the Reformation was largely a negative thing for the church. There were great strides in theology and returning to a place where our personal faith was felt deeply and lived out in a more personal way, but it also created hostility between those who left the Catholic Church and those who stayed. Pastor Emily and I are watching the 6th season of Outlander right now. And this separation, or disunity as the devotional put it, is an underlying theme. It shows Scottish people who are ready to fight each other on a regular basis over their different understandings of faith, either Catholic or Protestant. Each one is also aligned with their political views as well. Each group had a different perspective regarding who should rule. Now, this show is currently set over 200 years ago, before the Revolution, but it doesn't really sound like anything has changed, does it? We still argue over who should be in charge of our country. We still argue over our religious beliefs. We might actually be farther away from unity than they were over 200 years ago. But this tendency isn't new, and it wasn't new 200 years ago, and nor was it new 500 years ago when the Reformation started. It started right in the very beginning. Instead of being unified, Cain and Abel were in a state of conflict, whether Abel realized it or not. Humanity has been a mess ever since, constantly becoming less unified with every generation. The church should be the point where we all come together. Jesus tried to make that point and bring the Jewish people to a point of unification, but they wouldn't listen. The disciples continued that mission, trying to get people to see that Jesus' teachings about the Jewish faith were the right way and not really that different than what they already thought. But people still didn't want to listen. So from the beginning of our faith, what should have been a Jewish movement that was open to everyone was already dividing against itself. Then the Gentile church was formed, and it split in two after 1,000 years. It was another 500 years before the Reformation, and we've been splitting constantly since then. But even though there is fracturing and disunity, our understanding of God takes steps forward during these periods too. Amazing theology happened during the initial years of the Reformation, even though there were wars being fought over it. Over 200 years ago, John Wesley was making great strides with what would become the Methodist movement. But his intent wasn't to start something new and to separate, but to bring the Anglican Church to a new understanding. We don't like change, and we don't like challenges to the way that we think. And while I can't speak for perspectives in years past, I can say today that in a lot of ways I see that we don't even want to have to think about our faith. For many people, the prevailing opinion is they just want to be told what to believe and to be confident in that. But that's not what Jesus did at all. Jesus didn't give them statements that they could stand firm on. He spoke in parables so that even the people who traveled with him every day couldn't understand. He made people think, and that made them uncomfortable. But if we aren't thinking about our faith, why do we even have it? Is it just a get-out-of-jail-free card? Are we in church every Sunday just so that we won't go to hell? If we are only in church so that we won't go to hell, we're not actually living our faith. We're using our faith as a shield against an outcome that we don't want. John Wesley started off this way, and so did Martin Luther. But eventually they were dissatisfied with how this felt. They knew that there was something more to what faith should be, and they took steps to make those changes. They spent time thinking about what it meant to believe in God and the impact that it should have on our daily lives. Not just showing up for church on Sunday, but how we actually live. I was in a conversation with someone about Methodist churches last week, and he pointed out that in the Methodist tradition, we are encouraged to think about what we believe, and it's okay for us to come to different conclusions. For some people, that can seem messy, but it's definitely one of the things that keeps me here. As United Methodists, we are encouraged to think about what we believe and why we believe it. We aren't just told what to believe from the pulpit and then expected to just buy into it without taking some ownership. In the Methodist Church, if we work at it, we can agree to disagree and still sit next to each other on Sunday morning. We don't have to be divided against each other over minor issues. We don't even have to be divided over major issues. Jesus Christ is our unifying factor, and that should be the case for the church universal as well. And deeper than that, if we can't agree about Jesus with other faiths, do we believe in the same God? Let's work from there and find common ground. Instead of looking for all of our differences, what would the world be if we started looking at things from the points that we have in common? What if we actually worked towards unity instead of separation? What if humanity was just that? Humanity. We don't have to be separated by race, color, politics, gender, sexuality, or anything else. We can try something completely new and just be humans together. Except, of course, that was how God created it in the beginning. Thanks for joining me today for another Chapel Chat. I'll see you here again next time. Have a great week.